really good sign. Meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, where the conditions are still pretty bad, and it may actually get a little bit worse before it gets better. Mike, do you anticipate that at Wrightsville Beach, near the water's edge, that you could see hurricane force, at least gusts there?
Well, that's certainly not out of the question because we've already had a gust to 60 at the Johnny Mercer Pier. Inland, it hasn't gusted as high at the airport. Last check up around 50 or so. Again, it's all about friction. Once you get inland, the wind tends to back off. But you get 50-mile-an-hour gust on this wet ground with these trees. You're going to have some uprooted trees, and you're still going to have the potential, certainly, for more power outages. Certainly not as high as areas to our south. What we're seeing here is, look at this water. The entire beach is gone. Meaning, not literally, but meaning that the whole beach is underwater. High tide usually is about 50 to 75 yards out there. In fact, when I was here late yesterday at high tide, we had about 30 or 40 yards of beach. And each successive high tide gets higher. Now, here's the deal with the tide. It's high here in about 10 minutes, officially 1:11 at Wrightsville Beach. Then we have a low tide at 7:30 this evening. So the good thing about that is the closest approach to the storm is about that time. Also, not long after that, our winds will go offshore. That will help to push the water back out instead of pushing it in towards the coast. And then our next high tide is, oh gosh, after midnight. By that point, the winds are well offshore, blowing pretty good. So this is really the high tide of concern. The one right now is the one that's going to do the most damage to the dunes and any property that's right on the beach. So far, we've seen very little damage, just a few shingles off a couple of homes. Everything down here is well boarded up, all the homes. The hotel's in good shape. They're open. They tell me they have about 60% occupancy. Again, it is the weekend, but it is, it's post Labor Day and not the peak season down here. Normally, these beaches in the summer are packed. You get a sense of how big these waves are. It's hard to tell visually. I think humans tend to overestimate generally wind speed and wave height. And I'm looking out there. I mean, they've got to be 10, 11 footers. The buoy off Wilmington Harbor is reporting. Here comes another wave. Look at this one. Wow. This water is still very, very warm. It's got to be somewhere in the mid-70s, mid to upper 70s. The buoy off the harbor in Wilmington reporting earlier just over 16, almost 17 footers. Now, that's fairly far offshore. The Edisto buoy, well off the coast in the Gulf Stream, reporting wave heights just under 24 feet from Hurricane Matthew. The other thing that we've got going for us, this is a weakening hurricane. It's a Category 1, nonetheless still causing a lot of problems, as we often see as we get into the weaker Category Hurricane 1 and then into tropical storm phase. It becomes more about an issue inland, where we have all the heavy rainfall. Plus, we have that tornado watch until, I believe, till 5. That's for northeast North Carolina, South Carolina, rather, Myrtle Beach, right up through here. And we have had a couple of tornado warnings. The last one I saw was in Carteret County. Boy, I tell you what, Mike Bettis, the water is still coming up.
Close.
High tide a few minutes away, but as we've seen up and down the coast, even though the tide may start going out, you won't notice it visually because of the push of the wind. We'll get those offshore winds. That'll take care of that later on this evening. Mike?
All right, Mike, thank you very much for the update. Water, as you mentioned, it's just going to be a really big issue north.